Hello and welcome to Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And today we're going to be talking about the 1994 film by Luc Besson, Leon, otherwise known as The Professional. So Matt, in the tradition of this show, we're going one of your films, one of my films, one of your films, one of my films. So Leon is one of my choices. And while it may not be one of my top 10 films of all time, I do think that it's one of the most iconic films that I think I've been shown, and just one of my favourites in terms of character building. I find that the film takes so long in building the relationship between the main two characters that I think that it's definitely one that I like to show people, I like to introduce them to it. And yeah, did you have a similar experience when you saw it for the first? Well, not for the first time. You'd seen it before, right?
Well, to be honest with you, it was one of those movies that I caught so much of when I was younger on Film 4 and, sort of late night Film 4 channels that I kind of felt like I'd seen the whole thing. Right. But when you lent me the Blu-ray recently, I watched it in full, and there was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't remember at all. Okay. So, to be fair, it was one of those that my brother was always watching. It felt like a movie that was definitely on my radar, and I knew key scenes from it. I knew, how cool Gary Oldman was in it, and there was certain things like when they're sort of practicing the sniper rifle technique from the top of the tower. There was all those scenes I knew really, really well. Yeah. But truth be told, I only really saw it properly a few months ago when you lent me the Blu-ray. Okay, then that's good to know. So you were familiar with the influence and like you say the iconic images and moments from it, and obviously Gary Oldman being one of the most lauded villains of the surely 90s cinema. Yeah, well, they used to play that clip, when he says, "I love these little moments of calm before the storm." That clip was always played on Film 4, when they were introducing a season of new movies, or whatever. So I knew that, really, really well. And I think my brother showed me the shotgun scene, where he goes crazy and kills Matilda's family, and that whole scene. My brother definitely showed me that.
I was going to say spoilers from this point on for the film.
Our whole podcast is
of course, yeah. Okay, no worries.
It should be called Matt and Mike spoil shit for everyone.
Yeah, or go rambling for about different films.
Yeah. Two rambling spoilers.
Yeah, that was just a little in-joke between me and Matt, because my dad has recently started listening to these and says that, you do go on about other films a lot.
Hideously unorganized.
Yeah, and here's us now talking about something that isn't Leon, so already we've screwed up. So, but speaking of fathers, I feel like this is a rather important message of the film. I definitely like the ideas of the fatherly bond between a father and daughter, and it's provided a lot of controversy around this film in particular. But before we go into it a bit more in depth, basically the film Leon revolves around the titular hitman. Essentially, Natalie Portman is his 12-year-old neighbor, and her family get gunned down by some corrupt policemen. And he then teaches her the ropes of the cleaning business or the hitman business, and she then tries to learn the ropes and try and get revenge on her especially her little brother, who Gary Oldman and the other agents gunned down. But throughout it, she feels like she's falling in love with Leon, who's I think he's late 30s, early 40s in this, but she's a 12-year-old girl, so there's a bit of an implication about that. And it came under some scrutiny, but I feel like it's more about a fatherly bond, and one about a young girl being able to feel free for the first time, maturing. But I think that's what Luc Besson's trying to get across. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I think it was probably one of these movies that would be different depending on what age you saw it at. If you were a kid and you saw it, you'd think, oh, Leon is so cool and someone that deserves to be crushed on and envied and all this kind of stuff. As an adult, because watching it for the first time in my 20s, I just kind of thought, in my 30s, flatten myself.
Don't do yourself some favors.
It's only 6 months ago. Yeah, in my 32s, not to jump straight to criticism, but I thought that Leon's character was kind of underdeveloped, which was kind of probably my main criticism of it, which kind of made Matilda's crush on him a little bit more comfortable because he wasn't reciprocated in any way. Yeah. It seemed to me that, he just either didn't really understand what was going on or just didn't have the capability of kind of dealing with it or whatever. And from Matilda's perspective, I guess that, if your entire family's just been killed and your dad is a complete dickhead anyway, that you're gonna kind of be obviously very confused and traumatized, but probably looking for someone to replace your father as well.
Yeah, father figure replacement,
Yeah, everyone's just really confused in this film. Yeah. That's the thing. It's just kind of there was no, that was, as I said before, that's kind of my main criticism of it. I think it's a really great film, but yeah, Leon's character for me was very, very underdeveloped, which is kind of cool because I guess then you can paint him, he's like a blank canvas in a way that you can read into it whichever way you want. And tonally as well, I think that, as I said, because Leon's character is so kind of underdeveloped and quite blank, for me, it kind of felt more like a kid's movie in a way, but then it's so violent and so harsh, it can't possibly be. But it might have even been better as a kind of a kid's movie. More of like a catering to a younger audience.
All
with
about
more ambiguity to what. Well, yeah, I know, but it might sound daft, but like maybe with a bit more ambiguity to what Leon actually does. Perhaps I don't know, but anyway, that was kind of my main takeaway.
Okay, no, I get that. In response to that, I feel like we're talking about the theatrical cut, but like the one I lent you was the longer version, and I feel like while recently watching like both versions, the longer version does go a bit more into his backstory, into why he left France and the problems he had over there with a woman. Like it's alluded to when he's meeting Tony, and he's like, "Oh, you got in trouble with a woman. Remember that. Don't let yourself get in trouble with a woman again." And like it leaves it as a bit of a mystery. I don't think the
theatrical would be an improvement for me then if it's got less, if it goes less into the character, because for me it was already lacking in that respect. But maybe I'm not reading it correctly. Maybe that's not what it's really about.
Yeah, no, I can understand where you're coming from though, in terms of the fact that they do leave it a bit like, I think like intentionally underdeveloped. Maybe like because the brief moments that we see of Leon when he's not just killing for his living is that he's going to the cinema, he's seeing Gene Kelly, he's trying to learn to read, he's very infantilized like that. But we're given enough to feel empathy for the guy and actually like this killer. When we're introduced to him in the first scene, he's just a pair of glasses drinking a glass of milk, and then he goes off and does this fantastic action scene where he takes down this crime kingpin and like eliminates all of his cronies and his henchmen. But so like you wouldn't imagine that you would find this guy likable, but then when he helps out Matilda, gives her a safe place, the first thing he does is find that pig oven mitt and like plays around with it, and like you see him getting into it more than Matilda is. It's all meant to be to like cheer up Matilda, but he's getting really into it, and he's like believing that Piggy's a real person and stuff. And
that scene is just endlessly charming, isn't it? Like, I just can't like not smile when I watch that scene.
And I felt like, again, maybe because like the character is kind of based off another character from another Luc Besson film called La Femme Nikita. He kind of Jean Reno appears as a cleaner in that as well. Like he cleans up the messes that other people that like other assassins leave in their wake. But like Luc Besson thought, this character's interesting, he deserves his own kind of film. So in a way, he is kind of ambiguous and very mysterious. But then he's given enough to have humanity and the fact that like he has a childlike nature, but he can kill really well. It's like a really weird kind of dichotomy within the guy.
I think for me, what was kind of would have been would have helped develop him a little bit more is if that because he is undoubtedly cool. He's like one of the coolest protagonists ever, and he has all these really cool quirks with the milk and the all that and the plant and everything. I think what was missing for me was that scene where he cries alone. There had to be that kind of soul behind, to show. I think that's really important especially for example, I've just started watching The Sopranos recently, which I've been meaning to do for literally 12 years or more. And my brother has been hounding me, for a decade or more, saying, you need to watch the show. And for the reason that works so well is because Tony is a killer and a mob boss, but he's also in a lot of pain. And he's going to, a psychiatrist to kind of... So I kind of, think that a scene like that in Leon that really, really delved into who he actually is. And, a lot of people might think it's better that it's left ambiguous, but to me, I couldn't really see him as much of a three-dimensional character without that.
But don't you feel like he gains that by the end? Where, like, but in the final attack on Leon and Matilda by like the thousands, it seems, of policemen, and like he's finally saying goodbye to Matilda and like saying that we'll see each other eventually. He's learned the joys of life, and like he's learned like how much he wants roots. He wants to have the family. He wants to have a family with Matilda, and we'll go on. I want to sleep in a bed. I want to do all these things that I wasn't doing before I met you. And by that point, that is the, I don't know, the humanizing of this character, and the crying alone scene, but like with someone instead.
For me, that might have worked better if he wasn't pretty much instantly kind to Matilda.
Okay.
And I'm not suggesting
he tries to shoot. He almost kills her in her sleep. So there is that.
That's true. Yeah, well, that's normal. But yeah, well, there is that, I guess, but that still kind of felt a bit like a mercy. I think that, in some way it might have been better if he was almost a little bit more
cold.
What's the word? Cold, completely uninvested, in her from the beginning, like ignored her, didn't talk to her. I don't know. There's something for me that as soon as he's sympathetic to her very shortly, because he has to be for there to be a film, he has to be sympathetic and sort of show her the ropes and everything, then he's already kind of won, you know what I mean, in my eyes, because he's already human, you know what I mean, from that, even though he is a killer. Yeah, I think more of a sort of Schindler's List type of arc, where the way Liam Neeson is in in terms of Schindler's character, I mean, the fact that you really think that he is only interested in self improvement, betterment, accumulation of wealth. That's really what you think his motivations are up to about 3/4 of the way through. That is, and I think that I needed probably more of that kind of twist.
But don't you feel like that kind of character wouldn't have the same impact when you first meet him? Like, yeah, you see this fantastic execution scene of like all these henchmen, and then you meet a guy who isn't likable, and you can't empathize with the guy, and therefore it wouldn't make the same emotional resonance than a guy that you see going to the cinema and watching Gene Kelly.
Could just be more of an anti-hero, I guess, because he'd always be a hero anyway because he's so cool. Yeah, it was an anti-hero, but maybe more of an anti-hero, just to the point where for me, it just like that was and I really like the film. Like, I don't want to be jumping to criticisms so early, but it did that. Just to be honest, that's kind of how I felt by the end of it. Is that it's really well done. Everything about it I like. Apart from it didn't quite have that bit at the end. With the whole sort of the final scene.
Yeah.
I just didn't quite. It didn't quite have the emotional impact that I felt like it should have had.
Oh,
and I
that's
think,
a shame.
and then so I started thinking about it afterwards, and I was like, "That's probably the reason."
Yeah, no, I get that.
Explain.
For me, it's exactly the opposite. When you see him walking out, and you think he's managed to escape in like something that's been done to death now, by pretending to be like one of the security guys, not the security guys, but the police officers.
Silence of the Lambs style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's walking down the tunnel, and you see that light that's at the end of it. Very cliche, I know. But then with Stansfield coming up behind him, shooting him in the back, and the fact, I feel like on his face, you feel like this is him able to say, "I'm willing to be in the world now." Because there's so many times when I just found it very interesting that like New York is always in daylight in the film. Like you never see nighttime New York in this. You never see nighttime
That's
out
really
like at all.
interesting, isn't it?
It's a very weird way of showing New York in terms of film, because everyone usually goes for the seedy underbelly of the nightlife and stuff. But like when you see Leon, he doesn't explore New York. He doesn't go anywhere. He's in the center of this fantastic metropolitan hub, but all he does is stay at home. He trains. He sleeps alone in a chair. He drinks milk. But then by the end of it, when he's able to see outside in the streets, and he's willing to be there because he wants to be there. And like, and one thing I didn't even pick up on this time until this time around is when in the toilet scene in the government agency, when he's about to kill Matilda, and he says like, do you cherish life? And she's like, yes, I do cherish life. So that's, oh good, because I don't take any enjoyment from taking life from people who don't appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that's cold and sinister. But when he's behind him and he's walking out the building to this like brilliant new bright light in the streets outside, I caught like a smirk from Oldman and like from Stansfield, because he's able. I get, well, and maybe I'm picking up on this in a different way and seeing it differently. But the fact is that now Leon didn't appreciate life until now, and now he does, and that's why Stansfield happy to take it from him.
Yeah, because he's become human and become like someone who actually has a lust for life.
Yeah, and I didn't put two and two together until like this time round. Sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry.
That's quite a brilliant point actually. Yeah, like as soon as he becomes human, then he becomes like worth killing somehow.
Yeah,
a bit like the Spacey, you know, in the end of American Beauty. You know, there's like that moment of just like pure joy.
yeah,
That's when you get capped in the head when
yeah.
you're truly happy.
No, oh, we do like these depressing films, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
But another thing that I picked up on the second time around is the fact that like the first time you see the cops and the second time when they come and try and get the drugs and they like kill the entire family. When I first saw it and they said like come out into the corridor and they shoot the glass next to the old woman, they say like we're DEA agents, ma'am, get back inside. Like, oh right, okay, it's just a cover because they are actually gangsters. But when they actually do come back and they are policemen, I was like, oh god, right, okay. But the first thing that Leon teaches Matilda is no women, no kids. So like instantly he is the opposite of Oldman's character. And like the police have less rules than the hitman.
Yeah, he's a lesser of two evils.
Yeah, so like Leon's character instantly goes up in our esteem because he has morals, whereas the other guys don't. They're willing to kill like a kid, and they're willing to kill like unarmed people like that. And I just found that interesting, especially in recent times.
Well, I think you know that scene it's so conflicting because obviously you know I'm not saying they deserve to be gunned down you know in the bath,
No.
but like Matilda's parents fucking suck, you know, so it's kind of like it's kind of a doing Matilda a service in a lot of ways, you know, because like all that was going to happen in her life was she'd probably get sucked into the same lifestyle,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a blessing. It also like weirdly reminded me of Roald Dahl's Matilda, you know, the way like the way Matilda's parents are just like.
Which book have you been reading? Bloody hell.
Yeah, it was the first draft that Roald Dahl wrote after his accident. But it just reminded me of that, you know, in the same way that you know you absolutely hate her parents, you know, like there's such, you know, like he literally is Mr. Wormwood, like he sucks, but Mr. Wormwood if he was packing and sold drugs. And and so you kind of like this is cool, like you know, evil's punished, but then Gary Oldman is just taking such sick pleasure in it. But it's not like her parents got accidentally shot, you know, in a normal DEA raid. It's like, you know, it's like there's pure evil going on here, and his sort of the way he's kind of conducting the orchestra as he's going around. Like,
Yeah,
his hands,
that was all improvised as well, apparently. Like,
oh, was it?
All the conversations he has with the dad when he starts sniffing him in the corridor, that's all improvised, just to make him seem more unpredictable. And like the actor had no idea what he was doing, felt intimidated by his presence. And I was like, yeah, I can understand why. I'd be intimidated by Gary Oldman sniffing me too.
But again, that shot of him sort of like looking up towards the ceiling and cracking the the pill in his mouth. That's just as iconic as like some shots out of Pulp Fiction or something. You know, they're just so ingrained like in my mind from you know what is film. Like when I was growing up, you know the what is a cool film? It's Pulp Fiction, Leon, you know, and some other ones.
Matilda, apparently.
Matilda, yeah, Matilda's sweet.
Hell yeah. I'd love his portrayal because usually I'm able to like nail down a bad guy in a film, or I'm able to like understand what they want, understand their motives. But this guy is so off the cuff. He's so everywhere. He doesn't seem to have any morals. He doesn't know. I mean, like obviously he's in the drug business and he wants money and power. But apart from that, just the cracking of the pills, you don't know why. Like some kind of psychosis he may have, or like some kind of mood altering temperament thing. So like it just makes him so like unpredictable and chaotic. And you just every time he was on screen, first time I was watching it, I was just so uneasy, and I just didn't know what he was going to do, and I hated it.
That's it. Like he's kind of like the polar opposite to Commissioner Gordon, really, when you think about it. Like his role as Gordon, like you know, you couldn't get more like you know, more polar opposite cops.
The wide range of Gary Oldman's roles throughout his life.
He's had some great ones, man, and like you know, this one he's just so good in this film, and I just love I love a villain, especially a good one, and he's way up, he's right up there with Dennis Hopper.
Yeah. I think he's always going to be known for that everyone right at the end. But yeah, it's an entire performance that is worthy of note. But I can understand whilst watching the longer version, like the supposed director's cut, which isn't the director's cut. The shorter version is the one that Besson wanted, so therefore that's the director's cut.
I've heard there's stories like that before, where is the director's cut, quote unquote, is that more of like an assembly cut? It's just some additional stuff that was
25 minutes of additional footage that just like the one for Leon, it shows Matilda going on more kills with Leon and like learning the trade. But I felt like when I was watching it this time, I was just like, get back to the story. The story is about Matilda getting her revenge, and we want to spend time with the bad guy and learn why we hate him, and yeah, do that again. So
Well, I suppose that is that to sort of, you know, counter my point at the start. Like, you know, this really isn't Leon's story, is it? You know, it's
no, it's
Matilda's
Matilda,
story.
yeah.
So, you know, whether Leon, you know, has a clear past or not really, or you know, a clear, you know, his psyche is like, you know, explored. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it is Matilda's story at the end of the day.
And I'm particularly gutted that we didn't get a sequel, because I would really, yeah, when I first watched it, I was like, oh, I want to know what happens to Matilda. I want to see her.
Was that ever on the cards? Have you done any research?
It was, yeah, it was on the cards for a while. Besson had written it. It was going to be directed by another director. Natalie Portman was up for it, and it was going to be taking place, I think, like 1999, something like that. They had filming for, but talks broke down between. I think Gaumont is the production studio that Besson was working for, and he founded EuropaCorp after leaving, and intended on making it there. But like, just to stick it to Besson, they retained the rights to the story, and we're just always going to say like, no, you're not going to make it because we own the rights to it. So like in essence, I believe Columbiana, the film with Zoe Saldana that came out, I think like 2000 and early tens, I'd say, that was like a spiritual successor to the story, because it's about like a female assassin who, you know, cleans up the same way that Leon does, and like tries to avenge her family in the same kind of way.
And that was directed by Besson, was it?
I think it was produced and written, maybe, but not directed. No,
I took more of a backseat.
I believe so. Yeah. So like the writing credits, like the original characters created by Luc Besson. But yeah, and
I mean,
speaking,
it arguably, you know, it's one of those movies that, you know, it kind of demands a sequel, but also at the same time, it's like, you know, Leon's gone. What are you going to call it? Leon 2? You know, it's like
exactly.
It doesn't really kind of, you know, you could call it Matilda, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know.
Not get it
man.
confused with the Danny DeVito one.
Yeah, yeah, God, yeah.
That coming out the same year, taking the kids accidentally to the wrong one. There's your kids film for you.
I think it did. I think it actually did. Wasn't Matilda like 95? Was it 96?
I have no idea about that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll have to Google that. I'm pretty sure it was either 95 or 96. But yeah, that's interesting.
Okay.
Danny DeVito's Matilda, the best movie ever made.
But apparently, like he only created this like as a stopgap. Like he was trying to make The Fifth Element at the time. Bruce Willis had a bit of a busy schedule on, so he had like the crew already, but Bruce couldn't do it. So he was like, okay, so I'll just crank out a script. He wrote it in 30 days, like a month.
No way.
Yeah, and just like made a film that's thought to be one of the most iconic action films of all time. And
yeah,
it's just
again,
like,
it's never been. We won't get into this now, but I've never liked The Fifth Element. It's
really?
Never, yeah, it's one of those kind of like, you know, early Wes Anderson vibe to me, where it just irritates me.
Oh, I love
like,
The Fifth Element,
and there's so much going on in it. You know, it's like, you know, and it, you know, it looks expensive. It's one of those movies where
it drives you to the point of irritation. That's surprising.
Yeah, it's too colourful and loud. And
when was the last time you gave it a go?
Not that long ago, actually. I did try it because it was on Netflix, so I think I tried about 3 years ago.
Okay, right.
And it just genuinely irritated me, and
that's surprising.
Like, I don't know why, really. It's kind of weird because it is kind of akin to like a Terry Gilliam movie or something, and I love Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
Films. It's just kind of erratic and crazy. You never quite know where it's going, and it just feels like it's
quite surreal. You know,
yeah. Surreal, and I don't know what it is about it. It just kind of.
That's
I guess it's future, but it's not really future cool to me. It's more just like future crazy, and I'm just like,
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So anyway, but so I guess I've got issues with the old Luke.
No, fair play. I think his best days are behind him. Personally, I haven't seen a good film.
What's he done of late? Has he done anything? What was his last directed movie?
I want to say it's like one of the ones that sticks with me. Yeah, that feels like a film that was written in 30 days. I wasn't a big fan.
I was actually going to, no, me neither, but I was actually going to cite Lucy just because, you know, when we were talking about successors to, sequels to Leon, I was going to bring up Lucy. I was going to say, that's kind of like, you know, it's like about a female hit woman assassin, you know, cool, genuinely cool, like shooty woman. So I was kind of like, you know, that kind of feels like a weird successor to it in a weird way. Or what was that other one? Was it Hannah?
Oh, Hannah, yeah. I don't think that was a Luc Besson thing, but I understand where you're coming from because it had a similar kind of shtick to it, where it was like a young girl assassin.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it. I think it was the same director who did Atonement. Is it Joe Wright, something like that? I can't remember. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Speaking of the Fifth Element, one thing I didn't realize as well until I was doing a bit of research for this is, you know, the big blue alien who does the opera.
Yeah.
She's in this film, the actress. She's the like the blonde prostitute at the beginning of the film who like sleeps with the crime boss, who
no
has
way.
the really like the funny moment saying like, okay, I'll see you later, when like he's got his knife. Leon's got his knife pressed to the crime boss's neck and stuff.
So she's a Luke regular as well, like as Gary Oldman.
Not only is she a Luke regular, she was dating or like maybe even like engaged to Luc Besson at the time. And
Very regular.
the relationship between Matilda and Leon is kind of based on her and Luc Besson because,
Okay.
yeah,
Explain.
yeah, the girl in question was 12 when she first met Luc Besson, and he was in his 30s, I want to say. And then apparently, yeah, she said that she was in love with him at age 15 when he was about like mid 30s.
Sure.
And yeah, apparently like when the story was written and when it went up on screen, apparently like she was like, yep, that's how it kind of went. So that's one more in the camp of, okay, this is kind of creepy romance sort of thing rather than father-daughter kind of bonding thing. So you can have your own opinion, but that's that's evidence to the former rather than the latter.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
just
that's
something I didn't know.
Right about what you know, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but still interesting. Interesting. Did you know that I didn't know?
That's a good no. I know now.
There you go.
And I wish I didn't know.
No, sorry about that. Made you feel a bit more creepy.
Yeah.
I'm championing it, and like I introduced it to you because I thought you were gonna have a good time. But I don't want you to. I don't get the. Well, maybe I get the feeling like you felt like it was a bit underwhelming, or you felt like it was a bit.
No, it really isn't that. I think that to be honest with you, you know, when you watch a movie that is this cool and this later on in life, you kind of it's so easy to name things that are great about it. I think it's more interesting to talk about things that aren't great.
That's
about
fair.
It.
Yeah, completely.
But having said that, the shotgun scene that, as I said, the police raid scene is just iconic. The bit that stuck with me the most, though, from when I first watched sections of it as a kid, was the bit where they're doing the sniper training on the roof.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
And sort of with the paintball gun, that bait and switch thing, you know, with the
you think she's going to shoot someone, yeah.
Yeah, and that's still like sort of it's one of those things where you know how the scene's going to play, you know, but it's so tense, like watching it. It's a bit like the whole sort of Titanic thing. You know they're going to hit the iceberg, but there's a bit of you for a minute that just goes, "Is this actually going to happen?"
Yeah,
like,
no,
you know,
that's
they're going to
definitely
miss.
good,
You know? And so it was a similar thing with that. It's just such a well done scene with gauging the wind and everything, and just that being obviously the kind of beginning of their kind of training as well. You know, like sort of his trust of her and stuff. So yeah, that's a really great scene. I love that.
I understand you're used to the term like bait and switch about it because like I feel like a lot of people go into it thinking that it's going to be like guns a minute action kind of film, but like I found it really interesting just like analyzing it this time that like the beginning bit has the raid on the penthouse with the crime boss, and the end has all the police coming after Leon and Matilda. But in the middle of that, you don't. I mentioned it I think in the intro, like you don't have that much action. It seems like there are moments where the training happens, but the rest of it is just like them training. Well, yeah, sorry, the training, they have the working out at home, all the milk drinking, getting to know each other sort of thing. And then by the end of it, you feel like it's kind of earned. And I felt like in terms of action, it's not really like guns blazing, like bad boys kind of Michael Bay explosions. Apart from maybe once with a rocket launcher, but apart from that, it's just the fact that like you know how much this apartment means to the two. You know how much care they take about them. You know how much the fact that they have to go from apartment to apartment to apartment, or hotel room to hotel room, and the fact that like that's being destroyed around them means so much. Like the fact that like Leon has to protect the plant, and like they have the whole secret code about like how to enter. They have so many different rules that are set up.
It's their own kind of just little, you know, private island, isn't it? You know, where it's like everything in there is kind of normal.
Exactly.
And, like, you know, and it's uncomplicated and uninteresting and just kind of like their own thing.
Exactly.
You know, they're kind of trying to. It's almost like they're building a family, aren't they? They're building like
they are.
a quote unquote normal family life.
Yeah. But like
you know.
but the fact that that's being taken down at the end makes it means so much more. even though it's just like people just going down a corridor to one apartment at the end of the hall. But it feels like it's like the end of Scarface in that gigantic mansion where he's being gunned down by everyone trying to get him. But they manage it so well, and I feel like it has so many different intricacies that like he's hiding above the door and he shuts the door and shoots them all, and like he's outwitting everybody, and like there's moments of humor within it, but like it still means so much, and you care about the characters. You don't want to see Leon die. You don't want to see Matilda die. And
no,
like,
and it really is. I just knew it was a matter of time. I mean, because I think there's something about the tension in that scene where, as well, skilled as Leon is and everything, and as well kind of fortified they are, at the same time, you just kind of know that they're going to get them. This is somewhat of a last stand.
Yeah, no, definitely. The last stand is definitely a good way to describe it. But yeah, just the drama of that last scene, I feel like is probably the best in it, and I feel like is one of my favorite action scenes. Just in terms of the emotion that surrounds it, like him pushing her down the gap in the wall, telling her that everything's going to be okay, but knowing that it's not. And then when he turns around and has that gigantic, like surreal kind of scream as the rocket launcher comes in, is just, God, the emotion gets me every time.
It's brilliant, and it's one of those things where it's a film. It does two things very well. It does family drama like really, really well, and sort of sentimental drama, and it also does action so well. So it's like these two things just put together that are just and it just works completely. It doesn't feel like one outweighs the other, or it's it's a mix. It's tonally, it balanced tonally really well, and I think especially those ending sequences. So yeah, it's just wonderful. And then the whole as you said, the whole scene with the sort of the near escape at the end is just so heartbreaking.
Yeah. I've got a friend who every time he watches it, I don't know if it still happens to this day, but when he first started watching it, like at the end when she pots the plant and stuff, and Sting starts playing over the credits, he had a little cry every time, shed a little tear.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's as I said, like I probably laid into it, a bit heavily. As I said, you always
no, not at all. I'm not trying to you have guilt you.
It's it's a tricky one. It's like when someone builds up a movie, not when someone when everybody
when society builds up a movie.
When society builds up, as I said, it was on Film 4. It was one of these things where it was all the adverts I saw on Film 4 were for Leon, the professional, the coolest film ever.
Yeah,
and so when you watch it, obviously you're gonna. It's difficult not to be cynical and not to sort of try and poke holes in it. So even just subconsciously, I think it kind of happens. But having said that, it's Leon for a reason. It's a really, really well made film. And it really is. It is brilliant. It is brilliant. And I mean the performances, like Leon himself is just amazing. Like as I said, I could just watch him endlessly, and he even made Godzilla bearable.
I really like Jean Reno. I'm a big fan of him. Yeah, everything he's in, he makes better. Did you see him in Ronin?
I never saw Ronin, no.
Oh, Ronin's really, really good car chase film as well. That's a really good one. And he's fantastic in it as well. Even though the first Mission Impossible, I was a big fan of him being a bit of a diabolical kind of son of a bitch.
He's a great, great actor, man. Like he's super, super cool.
Yeah.
And just watching him and Matthew Broderick exchange words in Godzilla. We probably shouldn't talk about Godzilla too much and give it any kind of pedestal. But however, he's got a soft spot in it.
Yeah, definitely. So moving away from Godzilla, just to go back onto Leon.
Please do.
No, right, sorry. One thing that stuck out to me again this time was the theme of maturing and the pressure to do so. I feel like Matilda goes a bit overboard, and she goes from being overpowered and being really pressured in the house and stuff, and she's a kid watching Transformers at the beginning, but then she grows into an assertive woman who tries to kill Norman Stansfield in the middle of his surrounded by cops. It's all about her freedom and her getting to a place where she doesn't feel like she has a stomachache anymore. But in the same way, Leon puts it best when they have a conversation in the extended cut where Matilda says, "I'm done growing up, Leon. I just grow older. There's nothing else to me." And Leon says, "I'm already old enough. I just need time to grow up." And in a way, it's while one's maturing, the other one isn't, because he's already so old, but he's getting to learn to have roots and to open up again. And while I feel it does take it too long to get back to Stansfield and stuff in the director's cut, I feel like that is a very important time, because it allows, an important feature of the extended cut, because it allows that line to be said, and it kind of highlights the difference between the two of them, whilst one is trying to act above her age because she's been like thrust into it by horrible police like presenting her with a murder scene and her dead brother, whereas Leon's been raised by Tony essentially just to learn one thing. He hasn't learned how to write or read. He hasn't learned, who Marilyn Monroe is, who Charlie Chaplin is, who Madonna is, but he knows John Wayne because he's been taught to be a tough man, not to have any like emotional growth. And that's what he needs, and that's what Matilda is for him. That's just what I thought of this time.
That's a great line, actually. That really is, and that kind of, I guess there's your hook right there. That's kind of that's what the movie's about, isn't it?
Yeah, and
it's
I felt
about
like
how people
it was
can
lost.
help each other mature in very, very different ways.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like that's why their friendship blossoms and into something that, fair enough, she's misinterpreting as love and she wants to have a sexual relationship with him, but it's only because she doesn't know what this is. She hasn't had a father figure to admire. She hasn't had anyone in her life who's like a positive role model. So that's why she's misinterpreting, because she's essentially a child all the way through this still. But she
feels kind of ready for it because she's grown, like you said, because she's grown up so quick because she's had to.
Yeah.
Because she's lived in this terrible, terrible crime-ridden household.
Yeah.
Like, and everything, and learned everything the hard way.
Yeah, and I feel like that overshadows, like, the feeling of creepiness about what she says and like how she like screws up their second hotel room by calling him a lover rather than a father.
Yeah.
But like only because she feels like she has to, and I feel like that represents just her growth as well. And like it's been lost in the sensational elements of it instead, I think.
Yeah, I mean obviously she's just too young to understand.
Yeah.
What is actually going on. Like any kid that age, they kind of. I knew quite a lot of kids like that. Kind of growing up, like as we'd meet kids like that who had just come from such like shitty backgrounds that they kind of grown up way too quick and they were way ahead of us.
Yeah.
In terms of like, we want a skateboard and they were just kind of like after, there was a few examples of like kids that I met like that growing up where I just kind of thought you're just, something's happened to you.
You've had to take on more than you should have at the age you are. You've had to be the adult in the house, or you've had to, be like an older sibling to your younger sibling, but like to an extent where you shouldn't have had to deal with what you've dealt with so far. Yeah,
exactly. And you don't recognize the tragedy of it until you're older. But now looking back on it, I realize that these kids, that I met that were like that were just kind of like, we were way too childish for them because we still had a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah.
And stuff. But yeah, again, it's only now that I kind of really recognize that, and so I knew a lot of Matildas growing up like that.
but saying that, I don't think this film could be made today in the way that it has.
No,
I feel like it's a child of its 1990s time, a bit more of an innocent time, but it wouldn't fly today. Really?
No, I don't think so, and I think that you'd have to make the you'd have to tone down any kind of sexual advances.
Yeah, really highlight the father thing instead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of any other examples where they have like an older person and like a younger person in like a sort of a team.
I'd
like
say
that,
I mean, have you ever played The Last of Us?
Is that the zombie? Is that the zombie one?
Yeah, it's like a dystopian future after like a killer plague like wipes out most of the world.
Yeah,
and, like part 2 has recently come out. Yeah, but like
I started it. I borrowed it off my friend and never finished it. But I remember it being really cool. Actually, I don't know why I didn't carry on with it.
It's really good. I really recommend it, and it's like highly lauded as like it's showing a fantastic friendship between, or like a father-daughter bond between Joel and Ellie, who are in the game. I can lend it to you if you want. Anyway.
Yes, please.
Yes, of course, no worries. And part 2 is getting some controversy now, but for different reasons. We won't go into that. But yes, I'd say that's another great example of like, you have to really, because there's no sexual chemistry between the two of them. Like even like Ellie's like shown to be like a lesbian in it, just to emphasize the point. But I feel
there's your answer then, isn't it?
Exactly.
You have to do something that definitively says this is not even
to avoid
an issue.
any criticism. Yeah, of course.
yeah. Which is I don't disagree with really in a way. Because, but I mean, I suppose just from a filmmaking perspective, it's like you shouldn't have to explain yourself. It's like it's not an indecent movie. It's like
no, but my opinion,
and kids have crushes on people. That happens.
Yeah, it'd be weird if like it was the other way around. But all the way through this, Leon doesn't show any sexual interest in her. He's quite infantilized about that and just like shies away from anything. Doesn't like draw her eyes can't look at her in the face and stuff, and is just very much against it, which is what is necessary for a film.
I guess that's what
talking
made
about
it
that.
comfortable, isn't it? Is Leon's response, and the fact that he's somewhat kind of like you said, not really. Well, I don't know what you would say. Mature. He's very mature, but he's not.
Well, he's mature
not
in
really-
different ways, but he's immature in other ways. Like
Yeah.
the wide-eyed innocence of watching Gene Kelly dance isn't the same one as like he was holding a knife to the throat in the first one. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's been raised to be a cold-blooded killer, not to be a sensitive father figure. So yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, there's an interesting point when Tony's talking and he says, "Change ain't good, Leon," and then like shows like an old gent who's still in the restaurant and he's been there for all of his life, and just like Leon's learning that things can be different, and I feel like that's like the old guard trying to say that like progression ain't good, but
Yeah.
the film is a great example of just showing how sometimes change is good, and you don't want to be the same old, because by the end of it, Leon learns that sleeping in a bed is better than sleeping in a chair with the light off, ready to grab a gun and shoot someone who's coming through your door. So
Also, as much as that guy says, like, you're free to do what you want, Leon, he's like, he's pretty much, he's very much got a vested interest in keeping Leon where he is.
yeah. And I love the line about like, you see, I'm like a bank. Like banks get knocked off all the time, but not old Tony. And he's got bruises on his face because he's been roughed up. And you're trying to tell this child like this lie about how your money's safe with me. It's like, no, you're not. You're a guy who gets roughed up like everybody else. Stop trying to lie to them.
I was kind of like the blind leading the blind kind of came to mind with that scene. It's just like this guy doesn't actually really know what he's talking about. He's kind of he's not kind of what he makes himself out to be.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really liked was the soundtrack when I was watching it.
Yeah.
I had to look it up, and I realized that because some of the notes sounded familiar, some of the sound sort of effects that we used in the score.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's GoldenEye. It's James Bond. I was like, and it turned out it was the same composer whose name
Eric Serra, I believe, yes. Yeah, it might have been like a licensing issue and they couldn't really afford to have it in, but I would have preferred to actually hear some Beethoven or Bach or Mozart, like during one of the scenes where Oldman's like acting up a storm during the scenery.
Maybe they just thought that would be a bit too on the nose. And
Maybe.
people would just be like Kubrick.
Yeah, maybe.
but no, it's cool. I like him conducting. It's going on in his head.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
It's which is half the battle.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point that I didn't think about. Is like it's even more sinister to think that like it's just he's hearing music we're not hearing. And
the screams of his victims and the gunshots is his orchestra.
Yeah,
which is kind of awesome. But
on that happy note.
So anyway, what we've not talked about as well, it just on us, I know, is just how brilliant Natalie Portman is in it. And she is very, very young, and she's a brilliant actress.
No, No, I completely agree. I can't believe we went the entire time without speaking about her. Thank you for bringing it up right at the end.
Sure.
But yeah, no, she's for a 12-year-old to act that, I don't know, the wide range of it, like the anger and outrage and horror and sadness that she has, like just when she's ringing the doorbell, hoping that that Leon answers. That's one of the most tense bits in the movie, only because I'm just like, don't turn around, don't show your face, have this like crying face, you're just pretending to be normal all the way through. And that wouldn't happen without her fantastic acting. And well,
there's a lot of child actors that you watch and you kind of, even with like, Macaulay Culkin and stuff, you're like, you're acting there. I understand, I get, you're very cute and like, you're very cool and everything, but that's acting, but with Natalie Portman, it didn't even like enter into my head, I just saw her on the same level. It's like with I think she's a bit older, but True Grit.
Haley Steinfeld.
It's like when I like go to a concert and I like watch like Slayer perform or something. I'll be like, I just never want to play the guitar again. It's like because they're that good. It's like if I was an actor, child actor, and I saw that and I went to watch True Grit, I'd be like, I quit.
Mate, it was the same with me, and maybe not Natalie Portman in this, but Jacob Tremblay in Room, the little kid. I was just like, great. There's no point me ever trying to do any Amdram stuff because that 5-year-old has acted better than I could ever act. So it's like, okay, never mind. But
and
no,
the kid out of what's that sitcom? That British sitcom? Was it My Family or no? The one with Outnumbered. Oh,
I've never seen it.
The girl in that is, I don't know how old she is. Like she's like 6 or 5 or 6 or something. Maybe
she's a great actress though,
and she's the best actor you've ever seen.
Oh, really?
And it's like, and I don't know if it's kind of like, she doesn't know she's acting or something. God knows like what the technique is there. But anyway, check it out there because she's just unbelievable.
And
Like, she's so funny.
It's quite refreshing to see a child actor who hasn't had their life screwed up by it. And she went to Harvard, she got her degrees, and she's like, yeah, incredibly successful. So yeah,
Apart from the Phantom speed bump, yeah.
well, you know, she owns that now and makes it part of her own. Like, she's making fun of it herself, so it's all good.
To be fair, she came out best from that. Like, you know,
Yes.
a hell of a lot better than anyone else in the movie.
It's a shame, isn't it? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
God. Thank you very much for joining us on Matt and Mike Pull Focus. Say goodbye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
And that's goodbye from me as well. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just search for Matt and Mike Pull Focus. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And check out the other films that we speak about, such as Batman, Memento, There Will Be Blood. We've got a whole range. And we'll speak to you again soon.